I'd like you to imagine for a minute that you're at a fancy event and there's food everywhere. Well, most people are able to eat whatever they want to eat or like to eat. Well, if you have food allergies or are gluten intolerant, then you can't just choose anything to eat. But you could still eat as long as you factor in the fact that you have an allergy or gluten intolerance. Then your options would be available and you would be able to eat. I think this is the same thing that has happened when we go to doctor's appointments. When we go to a doctor appointment, and yes, we're all human beings, but what if there's a missing piece that we're not aware of that determines whether or not a medical procedure or method or medication or supplement works or not? And so this is what I want to cover in this video, and stick around. I know that it's very frustrating sometimes when we go to doctor appointments and there's no answers. We know there's something wrong, but there's no test results to show us what is wrong. And so then there's a tendency to be a possible gaslighting situation. And so before I go any further, I want to let you know that this is not medical advice. It's for informational purposes only, and I'm just sharing my journey with others. And so what I want to start off, though, is let's talk about what is gaslighting. Gaslighting came from the play, it was in like 1938, called Gaslight. And basically what happened in this play is the husband kept going around adjusting things in the house, gaslights. There wasn't electricity back then. And so he kept changing the lighting on the lights in the house and moving objects around until the wife was convinced that she was crazy and that she didn't see what she thought she saw, etc. That's where gaslighting comes from. It's a manipulation technique in this play. As far as medical gaslighting goes, we hear that is becoming a pretty common term right now because we go to a doctor's appointment and because they can't find anything wrong with us, they sometimes will attribute it to being psychological or that we're exaggerating our symptoms or that we're even making them up or they just can't find an answer. And so then if there's no answer to be found, instead of saying we still haven't found the answer yet, they tend to blame the patient. And I'm not being hard on doctors here. There's many awesome doctors out there, and they're not completely to blame because from what I understand, many of the tests back in the olden days was really done on mostly men. And so the data that they can draw from doesn't include women. And so the people that are prone to experience this gaslighting are usually women, people of color, and those who have chronic conditions. In fact, one time when I was in the hospital, I was explaining to the doctor, I told him I felt like I was very toxic. And I was giving him a list of my problems that I was having. And he basically said, come on, nobody can be that toxic. Thank you very much. That really helped. Ironically, a couple years later, I come to find out about the Camp Lejeune water poisoning. And if you don't know about that, I'll put a link down below to a good article from a lady who wrote about it. And that is where my mom became pregnant with me. So yeah, I could be that toxic. So how could DISH curb medical gaslighting? I don't know if you're new to this channel or not, or to my website, desperatetoBeWell.com, but it is always about and turns around back to this concept I call DISH. And I think DISH could help reduce the amount of medical gaslighting. For the reasons that I think that DISH could help reduce medical gaslighting is that it's the missing piece, I think. And what I mean by missing piece is I think it's the part that's broken when we're told about the predisposition. And I'll I'll make another video about that later. But this predisposition is what I would consider to be a faulty dish. As far as medical gaslighting goes, is that would mean that there are two types of people. And the two types of people need to be treated differently. For example, we're always told to exercise. Exercise and you'll be healthy. Well, if you have an autoimmune disease, what do they tell you to do? Don't exercise. Hello? Two types of people, right? Exercise, don't exercise. But that's not where it ends. And that's why I think DISH is so important to share that information about. It would help us to have our symptoms better understood if the professionals who are trying to help us realize that we need to be treated differently if our DISH is working or not working. But the good news is that if the DISH is not working, from my personal experience, manually making the DISH work enabled it to act like a working DISH. So regardless of whether or not my DISH was faulty, as long as I was doing what the DISH should be doing, even though it's not automatic, I was able to get results. First of all, I'd like to explain what DISH is. DISH stands for Defensive Individual Shield Hypothesis. And the important thing about DISH is that it has two jobs. One job is that it shields the body. And the second job is where it's a lot more difficult to understand, but it's a sorting system. I won't get into that on this video, but I'll get a video going and then I will include it in the link below as soon as I have it made. So DISH is a very simple concept. The body's not sorting properly. And what I mean by sorting is, for example, for me, strontium-90, radioactive material, was in the Camp Lejeune water. Your body needs normal strontium to make healthy bones and in other parts of the stuff for your body. Strontium is needed. And so if I don't have a sorting system that's working properly, I'm looking at strontium-90 and I'm looking at strontium and going, hey, they're the same thing. And if you look at science, yes, strontium-90 and strontium are the same thing. The only thing different is that strontium-90 has more neutrons, and the extra neutrons is what causes it to become radioactive. But with my body not sorting properly and saying, oh, this is good strontium, this is bad strontium, I need to get rid of this bad strontium, it is trying to get rid of both. Well, the body can't operate with no strontium, and so that's where inflammation happens. And because the body is trying to slow down the loss of the good strontium as it's trying to process out the bad strontium. Are we stuck there? Is that the predisposition? Is the body not sorting? Is that why we can't do the methods? Is that why we can't go any further than that? I think so. And I know it sounds confusing when I say sorting. That makes no sense. But I have my book, Health Backwards, an original look from a different perspective, explains my thought process. It explains how I came to these conclusions, and I explain what I think is happening to cause this sorting to even be happening, and for it to be going wrong as well. And so by having the sorting not working properly, the way I made it work properly, and it's a lot more complicated than this. Like I said, the concept is simple. Implementing it is more difficult, because if you think about radiation isn't just strontium-90. There's also cobalt-60, potassium-40, and then you have iodine. Your thyroid are affected by radiation. There's so many factors included, but for this video, I want to keep it very simple and let you know that this does work. Not medical advice, but I just want to give you hope. And so the sorting concept is so simple that basically all it is I needed to keep the good strontium on the outside of my body. It doesn't do the absorbing, it doesn't do anything like that. I'm not utilizing the strontium that's on the outside of my body. But what it is doing is it's helping my body, the nervous system and the lymphatic system, to identify, oh, that's good strontium. Let's leave him alone. And so the bad strontium is given permission to leave, while meanwhile the body is allowing the good strontium that is inside of me already to stay, because it has an exit route having the strontium on the outside of my body. I know this sounds so complicated. It's really very simple. And right now your head is probably spinning, but I just stick around on this channel and my blog post. Maybe sign up for Disher's Digest newsletter. I'll put the link down below. But the more you hear it, the more you'll be able to start piecing together all the information, and it'll start making sense. I mean, I've been researching this for over 12 years now. It took me 5 years to come up with my hypothesis, and since then I've been testing it and working on finding a system that'll work so that we can check off and make it easier to do the sorting when it's not doing it itself. So the way it's bridging the gap, by realizing there are two types of people: someone who has an automatic dish and someone who has a compromised dish, expands our options. And so it can be just as simple, and this is what I call guardian mode in my process of teaching this and explaining this. Guardian mode is really very simple, and what it is you need to think equal sign. If I put it inside my body, I need to have it on the outside of my body as well. And by doing that, the body is able to focus on why you were taking the medication in the first place. So there you have it.